Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. It's rare that we see something new on the racket market. Usually you see refined graphics, maybe some slight differences in the layup, meaning what's inside the racket, some new material, dampening, maybe some slight spec change, but even a thing like a change in string pattern is a big deal these days. So it's fun when someone or some company tries something new, and in this case Angell, run by Paul Angell, who used to work for Dunlop for many years. He has created what he calls a hybrid tennis racket. It's a hybrid racket, actually comes in two parts. You don't have to attach it, it's ready to be played as is. And the inspiration is from a racket he was behind, which is the Dunlop Max 200G, made famous by John McEnroe and Steffi Graf, who both used this racket for a period. And the idea with this is that it's made with something called injection molding, and it's a pretty expensive, labor-intensive process which creates this amazing feel that many people like in the Max 200G. So there have been other injection molded rackets, but it didn't really catch on, maybe due to cost, difficulty in actually doing rackets this way. The benefits, according to Paul, is that it will be easier to get the specs right. When you have foam filling, for example, it's very difficult to get the quality control. The swing weights might start getting a little bit difficult to control. With this process, you can get them more on spec. Many rackets today dampen the vibrations, either using foam, like Angell has done with their custom lineup, or with some dampening material in the handle. They try to eliminate those vibrations that can create tennis elbow or might not just feel so nice. This racket is very comfortable, arm friendly. It's kind of an old school frame, bringing the technology of the Max 200G, that kind of sensation, into a more modern racket. You can see it here. It's one part of the frame, and this is kind of the engine of the frame. He actually compared it to a sports car. So strings are actually go through here. This part that creates that hybrid feel and the difference in what a normal racket would look like. You probably haven't seen any rackets like this. The idea is to make it arm friendly without making it dampened or muted. So the specification, this is a more narrow 100 square inch racket than you might be used to, with some gravities which are very rounded or, you know, teardrop shaped. And other rackets that generally have a thicker beam. This one has a pretty thin 21.5 millimeter beam. I think that's the beam, I'm not 100% sure, but it's pretty thin. So this is more of a control racket, even though it's 100 square inches. When you get into hundreds, people always put them in the power category. In this case, this is more of a control and feeling racket. The weight is something we need to talk about. It's 317 grams. This is actually 11.2 ounces. And the reason we need to talk about the weight is that that's a pretty high weight for a 100 square inch racket in general, or any racket on the market these days. And this is unstrung specs, of course. The idea is that the weight is actually centered here. It doesn't really affect the swing weight of the racket. It's more about bringing a kind of a solid feel to the racket without making it sluggish. So don't look too much at the weight, and all things combined, this is a little bit of a different tennis racket than you'd see on the market, which is why I find it fascinating. 317 grams weight, 11.2 ounces, so you add strings, you're gonna get it up to 335. I also added a bunch of weight, but let's talk about that later. Balance is very head light. We're talking about kind of like a 6195 from Wilson, which a lot of you tennis nerds still use today. Very good racket, and this one has kind of a similar balance. So 12 points head light, you add strings, you get down to 9 points head light, or 31.5 centimeters. Stiffness, it's a pretty plush, low flex racket, 64. You add the strings, it goes down a few points, 61. This is very low in today's frames. When you get down to lower 60, it means a very flexible feeling to the racket. It's not going to just feel like a rock. It's going to have some sensation of the ball cupping in the string bed. Some players love it, some players don't. This stiffness is very similar to the Angell K7 rackets that I liked before and reviewed, the red and the lime. And it's also very similar to my Prestige MP that I've been using for several years. So I like this kind of sensation. Doesn't mean that you might enjoy it as much. It's not a pure drive, it's not a very crisp feeling frame. It's all about the sensation and the control you get. And then we get to the swing weight. So here the swing weight is the thing we need to talk about. It's 262, and that is very, very low. It's one of the lowest frames, especially with this high weight, on the market. So it's very, very fast, whippy frame, easy to maneuver despite the static weight, and that's mostly here anyway. 290 with strings, and that's a swing weight that needs to be talked about, because I didn't think it would work at all with that kind of low swing weight, and I did struggle to generate power without any customization with the swing weight. I don't think the stability was necessarily that bad, but the power was an issue, and there were several playtesters with me here. We were, I think, 4 guys in total, me included, that tested this frame, one 5.5 NTRP, one 4.5 and one 4.0 approximately in levels, and we all had that same sensation that without any weight it felt a little bit, you know, that the ball didn't have enough zip on it. What you can try is to string it lower. I think that will help a lot, or maybe using a multi-filament. You will have a really nice feeling with a multi-filament. I haven't yet tried that string setup because I'm not really using multi-filaments myself, but that could be one thing to try, and I think it will open up some power. But overall, I felt pretty quickly the need to add some weight, and I know many of you don't like to add weight. This frame might be fine otherwise, depending on your level, depending on how hard the players you play against hit the ball. If you want an arm-friendly frame that feels great, you can use a very power-oriented string, like a multi-filament or a natural gut, or you go for a polyester to open up some more topspin, and you go at a really low tension. And really low would be maybe something like 35 pounds, or you know, when you go down to 15, 16 kilos. That I think could be interesting in this frame, but you need to find a way to open up some power if that's what you're looking for, because otherwise you need to swing very, very fast. So I started adding weight, I started experimenting a bit, like I added a few grams, got it up to 312 strung swing weight after some weight addition up in the hoop where it adds the most swing weight. Felt much better for me. That's my personal preference, to get it higher. I mean, I want to be closer to 320. 312 was okay for me. I felt like the frame was more stable thanks to the static weight and maybe the engineering than another frame with that kind of weight and balance and still retain comfort. But for me, I prefer the static weight to be higher, and since the balance is so headlight, I have no problems really maneuvering the frame, and I don't think you should look too much at the weight here. So I actually added maybe 7 grams in the end to the hoop, and that bumped up the swing weight to 321. And I then restrung it, because I used black poly, unknown black poly in the beginning, that it was strung with that frame. And I felt like that was moving a little bit quite quickly. So I wanted the string I'm very familiar with. So I strung it up with Tourmaline Caviar, one of my favorite strings, 1.20 gauge, because I wanted to open up power, as I said, and at 44 pounds. And that's when this whole racket opened up for me. And I felt like now I have a racket I really enjoyed playing with. The feeling was great. I got good topspin potential. Just felt like an old school frame, but with a more forgiving and spinny response. I used to use the Head Liquid Metal Radical Tour frame that is very difficult to use. I found that out in Marbella last trip, because I revisited that one and I couldn't really use it. This one, I am now in the same spec range as my old ones, but easier to use, bigger sweet spot, better feel actually. The feeling of this frame is excellent. But let's get into the pros and cons. This one, despite the higher static weight, 317 grams on strung, it will play fast. Don't look at the weight, it's where the weight is distributed in the frame that is important. And these days, most frames are very light and then have a bit more weight towards the handle, because otherwise there's not enough here. This one is a little bit different, with a lot more weight centered here. And that's why I felt the need to add weight here. I'm not sure that everyone would feel that need, depending on your level, but for me, this was needed. And I would love to see more frames with different specifications with this technology, because I think there's something to it. It's hard to compare it to something, but it has that old school head style feel, when you feel like the frame has give, but not too much. Like it stays in the string bed, but it's not like a noodle. Like with this specification I have, I really felt like a throwback to some legendary rackets from Head, especially because I think those rackets were great back in the day. Control, excellent with the 1620. I think that's a good choice. For a while I thought 1619, but then I dialed in the string. Now 1620 makes sense. Doesn't have a huge launch, but pretty controlled trajectory with the 20 cross strings. So you don't have to really worry if you're a flat hitter. I think flat hitters will actually like this frame the most. But you can get some good topspin with the right string setup and tension. So as always, the reason I feel people should, when they review or test rackets, should give the racket time is that you need to tweak a bit. And that's everyone. It's not like, I think sometimes you need to tweak it even if you don't like tweaking frames. I think you get a lot more out of your tennis rackets and out of your playing enjoyment when you actually get the right string, the right weight balance that works for you, works for the frame. That's what I would recommend to get more comfortable with tweaking rackets with weight, maybe changing the base grip, doing something about the frame. Cons here is that it lacked power for me in stock form. Stock form I felt it was very difficult to use. I did try it with the poly I didn't like. I haven't tried it in stock form yet with this string, but still the 290 strung swing weight will be too low for me to generate any pace, despite the weight and structure of the frame, which seems to work in many ways. But I like a swing weight that's a little bit more towards 330 generally. But with this frame, the 320 felt rock solid when I got it up to the nice static weight. And I went 350 and it still swung fast. I still felt very good swinging and playing and hitting with this racket. And it got more power. So for advanced players, you probably need to customize this one. For, you know, lower level intermediate beginners, you can play it in stock form, get good sensation. It's going to be relatively easy to swing. You can use it, but probably string it with power string or low tension, and it should open up some more pace and depth on your shots. I really like it. I think there's potential here. I don't think it's perfect. I think the weight and distribution could have been a bit different. But we're all different, and I think this is a great attempt to try something new or bring something old into a modern racket, which actually worked, like the injection molding technology. So it's price point £250. It's not cheap. It has a very different construction and it is expensive. I know that for a fact, so that's why the price is what it is. If you really value feel more than anything else, feel and control, and you want a frame that you won't see a lot on the tennis courts, this one is definitely worth considering. For you guys who like old school rackets, who like good feeling, you want a bit more forgiveness maybe than those old school frames provided, but you want to keep that sensation when you hit the ball, then this frame is something you have to check out. So this was a daring move by Angell. Very interesting frame, fun to see something and try something new. I'll definitely keep hitting with this one, especially with this string setup and the weight in the hoop. Really happy today when I play with it, and I'll happily try it more. I don't think I need to tweak it more because now I found the spec where I think opens up the most power for me. It's good stability. I feel that I'm in control. I can hit more aggressively. It's just something that brings me back to the good old days with the older frames like the liquid metal, but has a bit more forgiveness, a little bit whippier, despite being the same weight thanks to the lower swing weight. For me, this is a highly interesting frame that I will keep playing with, but give it some time because you might need to tweak it a bit to get the most out of it. And that's with most rackets, actually, in my opinion. Thanks to the sponsor of this video, Fuzzy Yellow Balls, the singles playbook. This is a very good tool for you guys who want to improve your plays, how to beat the serve and volley guy, how to rally versus certain players, how to build up points. It's all in this book, and it's not only the book, you actually have videos accompanying each of these different lessons and plays that you can use to improve your tennis and win more matches. And I really think it's a good book. I bought it before they asked to sponsor my channel, and I'm very happy they did because I think it's a quality product that I've used a lot. So check this one out. The link is in the description. Take your strategic tennis game to the next level with some cool plays. And they also have it for doubles. So thanks to them. Also thanks to my affiliates. The links are in the description, such as Player Court if you want a new hitting partner, find a coach in the new area. This is a US service, but it works great and you get 50% off with Tennis Nerd. Check out the link. Ciao, ciao. Have a nice day and don't forget to play some tennis.